If you grew up poor due to your parents' inability to manage money, um, or make good financial decisions, when you become of age and you acquire your own income and your own status, especially a successful status as an adult, you do not need to be blindly giving your parents money. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. One of the things that I've noticed that people tend to do when they grow up and they become successful adults, and they may have grew up scratching and surviving, right, not knowing where their next meal was coming from, all because their parents made poor financial decisions. But when they become successful in their own right, and their parents are calling them up saying, hey, we need some money, we need some money, I'm of the belief that you do not need to give your parents money blindly. And reason being is because your parents' financial health and their financial values have not changed. Therefore, their ability to manage money most likely hasn't changed. So you would be better off pouring money down the shredder because they're still going to, you know, dispose of the money, just the way that they always have. Um, and they're going to look to you to be their Bank of America. Literally, they're going to keep coming to you and expect you're going to be their plan B, because no matter how they spend money, they know that more of it is going to come from you, their successful child. And they know that you're going to feel that stupid sense of obligation to take care of them and bail them out. And I call it stupid because it's not healthy and it's not in your best interest, and you are being manipulated and played. Not only that, but your parents know what they're doing. They're playing on your good heart, your good naturedness, and your desire to want your family to do well and to be okay. So, as a healthy, functioning adult, you now understand the value of money, but they still don't. And by you giving them money, they're pulling you back into their web of dysfunctionality. So I don't encourage people to do this. Of course, I can't tell you what to do because you're an adult, but I don't encourage people to get caught up in their family's dysfunction and their desire to want to please and validate and still continue to have a connection through your pocketbook or your wallet. I don't encourage that. Not only that, but the family, you're essentially taking out of the family that you may create's mouth in order to pour back in somebody else's, again, someone else's who's not grateful and who doesn't understand what you have to go through in order to make sure that they're okay while they're sitting around making reckless decisions on your dime. They put you at a disadvantage for a number of years. And so to me, that is a form of abuse and neglect. Parents financially abuse their children by being reckless with their money, and to the point where your children, you don't have stable housing, your children don't have something to eat, those kinds of things. I'm not talking about people who fall down on their luck. I'm talking about parents who are reckless, who spend their money on drugs, lottery, other men, other women, gambling, going out and just doing whatever with money and not doing financial planning and strategizing, not making sure your child has food, health care, college money, or whatever money set up for the future. You do not need to be your parents' retirement plan. You do not need to be their personal piggy bank for their financial reckless decisions. If you do, how are they going to learn to be responsible? How are they going to learn the consequences of their actions? And this is why they keep making these reckless decisions, because they haven't learned the consequences of their actions. Either you and other people around them have always been their bailout. You need to stop doing that. Now, if you want to help your parents, for example, in my opinion, like let's say they have a home that they own, but they can't afford to pay their mortgage because they've been reckless. But you want to make sure that the home stays within the family. If you're going to help them out with mortgage, then the home needs to be transferred into your name. And that way they can't take out home equity lines of credit, other things like that, and they can't make any decisions on the home. And that way you can pay the mortgage company directly without giving any money into their hands. At least that property, that real estate will stay in your family's name and you can trust yourself. But I wouldn't just give them money wildly and expect them to know how to handle it. Many Many ball players have done this with their family and they have met their demise. There's been countless stories of football players, basketball players, professional athletes, once they come up out of the mud and all that kind of stuff, and they did this sports and they make all this kind of money, and they buy their mama this and their daddy that and this and that, and they're giving out to their community. And then when that football player's money runs out, guess what? Because they keep giving and giving and giving to their family, but they're not financially investing. You also need to set boundaries around that, and have conversations around literacy, with that, as opposed to just blindly giving money to them. You also may need to go to therapy for your own self and understand what you're hoping to gain from that sort of transaction, or what that continued transaction means for you. Most cases it means, in my experience and working with people who go through this, they're either trying to get love and validation and acceptance from their parents that they've never gotten, or number two, they're just used to being put in the role and where they are the caretaker and they're the responsible person. So they're just carrying on business as usual. You're used to being in charge. You're used to managing and trying to keep the family organized and stable and afloat. But now you're the person with means, and so you try to keep them afloat by just giving them money. Sometimes people may give business opportunities. You may try to give them things where they can try to manage on their own. It's not worth it. They're going to disappoint you because they don't have that skill set in order to do that, to do anything differently. And so until they've learned the lessons, until they've actually done also the personal growth work to work around their issues with money, it will never work. So you want to be very conscious and thoughtful about how you're spending your money and who you are giving it to or who you're helping out. Because at the end of the day, you may not be helping. You may actually be enabling a person's problem to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I hope that helps. Let me know what you guys think. And if you like this and you want to hear more, definitely check out my podcast, A Date with Darkness. Subscribe to my newsletter to hear more about my offerings that are coming up. Both of these are linked in my bio. Talk to you next time.